All right, so moving along with our development process, we're in step 4 here of updating our product list component to handle pagination. And basically what we'll do is we'll make calls to that product service using that new method that we just created in the previous video. All right, so let's go ahead and close this one window and let's open up our component, product list component.ts. Zoom out a bit and expand my window. All right, so just as a checkpoint, make sure you're in product list component. And I'll move in here and I'll do some general housekeeping. I'll just go ahead and initialize some of the properties to have default values. Just so everything's initialized and we know what we're working with. And now I'll go through and I'll add some new properties for pagination. Alrighty, so I have these new properties here for page number, the page size, and also the total elements. So now let's go ahead and move down to our handle list products method. And we'll have to do some special work here regarding the category ID. So we have to check if we have a different category ID than the previous. Now, note, Angular will reuse a component if it's currently being viewed. So Angular may not always create a new component every time. If the component is currently being viewed in the browser, then Angular will simply reuse that component. So we'll have some state from the previous call. So we need to kind of perform some additional operations here. And the reason we're adding this code is mainly for the page number or resetting the page number. So if we have a different category ID than the previous, then we want to reset the page number back to 1. And that's the rationale for adding this code. So if this.previous category ID is not equal to this category ID, then this.page number equals 1. Now, granted, this previous category ID we don't have yet. Let's go ahead and declare it, and they'll actually create this property for us up top in this class. All right, and so if we scroll to the top of this class, we'll see this new property that the IDE just created for us. Okay, great, there it is, previous category ID. Let's go ahead and cut this, and I like to move it up right below current category ID, just so similar properties are in similar locations of the actual file. And then I'll also initialize it to 1. All right, so this looks pretty good right now. Previous category ID, great. Now let's go ahead and move back to the handle list products method. And in this method, I'll actually keep track of that category. So here I'll have previous category ID equals current category ID. And I'll also log this information just so we can track this in our browser for debugging purposes. And I'll also include the page number in the log. So now moving down here as far as getting the products for the given category ID, now I simply need to call the service, make use of that new method that we created, get product list paginate. And then I need to pass in those parameters. So I need to pass in the page number, the page size, and current category ID. And let me just clean up the tabbing here so things look pretty on the screen. And then I'll add .subscribe and I'll call this .process result. At the moment, we don't have process result created yet. We'll actually create it shortly in this video. However, I just want to point out again as a reminder on the page number. So here we have the page number -1. Again, the reason we're doing this is because pagination component in Angular, pages are 1 based. However, in Spring Data REST, the pages are 0 based. So basically in Angular, we have a page and we have to decrement it by 1 to map to the appropriate page on the backend Spring Data REST side. So again, that's why we have to do the funny math operations here. Alrighty, so now let's go ahead and take care of that process result method. So I'll define it here. And now basically all we're going to do is we're simply going to map data from that JSON response to the actual properties here for this given class. So on the left-hand side, we have properties that are defined in this class. Over on the right-hand side is the result of the data that came back from the Spring Data REST JSON. And that's information from our interface, get response products. And again, as a reminder here, we have to say data.page.number +1 because Spring Data REST, the pages are 0 based, and Angular, they're 1 based. So just make sure you have the appropriate mapping going back and forth. And if you miss this, your pagination will not work as desired. So this is an easy thing to miss. So just make sure that your code resembles what I have here on the screen because the pagination component is 1 based and Spring Data REST is 0 based. Alrighty, so this coding looks really good and I'm excited for the next step. So I'll see ya in the next video.